Former Bank of England policymaker David Blanchflower joins us now to give us his expert take on what's needed from tomorrow's emergency budget. Also with me, Bloomberg columnist Mark Gilbert. So, David, what do you want to hear from Chancellor George Osborne tomorrow?
Well, I want to hear a plan for growth. I want to hear how the economy is going to grow. I want to hear if you're going to cut in the public sector, what are you going to do in the private sector? So stimulus measures for private sector firms to hire and invest, probably tax cuts. But this has to be about growth. You can't just decimate the public sector and assume the private sector will step into the hole. It won't. So the danger is we'll certainly now go into a double-dip recession. I think that's absolutely certain given what's coming. The chances are whether we go into something much worse.
Tell us more about why spending cuts are the wrong approach in the current environment.
Well, the issue at the moment is how strong actually is the recovery that we have. So the answer is that firms are not really hiring at all very much. There's very little investment going on. And the question is how much of that is driven by the stimulus? My view would be quite a lot of it. So when you pull the stimulus away, the question is, what does the private sector do? Cut and cut and cut is a crazy thing to do. We're repeating lessons of history. This is what happened in the 30s. The danger is it just drives us into recession.
Mark, what's your take on that? Because right now the British government is borrowing, what, £1 for every £4 that it spends. Its budget deficit is the higher of the G20 nations at 11% of national income. I mean, how important is it for the UK to get its financial house in order, if you like?
You can see the argument. You don't want to be like a Euro country that can't borrow. When the bond market closes, you're in real trouble. At the same time, this does seem to be a philosophical issue rather than an issue of analysis of what's really needed. And I do think it's instructive, and Danny will know more about this than I do. The Bank of England is not trying to unhook any of the life support mechanisms that it put in place. So why the government thinks it's appropriate but the Bank of England doesn't makes me a little bit nervous that it's just politicking. It is absolutely nothing to do with the needs of the economy or indeed the need to get the deficit down. It's a philosophical need from a new government testing itself out. And it's hard to see how they're going to get their coalition parties and the Liberal Democrats to agree to these kind of cuts that risk the economic stability, I think.
What about the argument, David, that not every penny of public spending is necessarily spent effectively? Does there not have to be some restraint to get the deficit lowered, even if that means that wages, pensions, welfare transfers take a short-term hit?
Yes, I think we have to do that. The question is how quickly, how long a time are you going to take to do all of this? And the answer is it's like a patient has life support and you say, well, on the one hand, should I take it off now? Well, there's a danger the patient dies. Or do I keep it going for quite a long time? Well, of course we have to do those things, but the answer is, do you have to do them right now? Are private sector firms investing and hiring? And the answer to my question has to absolutely be no. And Mark's right. This looks like it's ideology. It looks like I've called it dogma over common sense. It looks to me that this could be the greatest macro error in 100 years. I think it looks to me like this is certain to push us back into recession.
And there's another issue as well. It's not that the UK is the only patient in the hospital. There's a whole ward full of countries all in the same position. The only strong country in the world really is China and the BRICS. They're the ones who are leading the global growth. So the fact that our neighbours in Europe and in the US are also not withdrawing any of their stimulus measures. If anything, they're trying to do a bit more to keep the economy afloat. That just makes me really nervous about the intentions behind this, the analysis that's been done.
And the US is certainly not cutting. And in fact, the chairman of the Federal Reserve the other day said this is absolutely not the time to cut. So the US is with this, as you say, and the worry as well is that if Europe really goes into double-dip recession, the UK will be pulled in as well.
The Greek sovereign debt crisis, it seems to have created a great deal of nervousness. We use that word a lot now. And even countries like the UK, which don't seem to have problems selling their debt, feel the need to tighten their belts.
Well, the UK is demonstrably not Greece. We have a sensible fiscal regime. We have our own central bank. We have an exchange rate. The Greeks are completely different. The World Bank says that Greece is the worst place in the OECD to do business. We're not like that. We're demonstrably not Greece, and for Osborne and Cameron to actually say we are seems to me to actually talk down the economy. To talk down the economy right now is the opposite to what you should be doing. It's impacting confidence.
They're doing that for political reasons, to create support for their...
Well, they're doing it for political reasons.
How should indebted governments approach fiscal policy then?
Well, I think you have to have certainly what you have to do is have a sensible stance on how you're going to pay the debt off. And I've always said it has to be a series of pathways that you pass through. Instead of declaring a date certain, you say it's subject to a set of rules, if you like. Growth has been established, unemployment starts to fall. A set of gateways, and when you hit them, you say, once we've got there, then we'll start to cut back. You don't have to do it over a weekend. You can take 5 years, you can take 8 years.
Mark, we have a situation where unemployment is rising, consumer spending isn't picking up. But what about the prospect of Britain losing its top AAA credit rating on government debt? Is that not something to be concerned about?
Do you know what? It doesn't matter. The rating agencies have no credibility. It wouldn't affect the cost of borrowing for Britain, and it certainly wouldn't lead to more failed gilt auctions. If that's really what Osborne is looking at as his big concern, if that's his new master, is the rating agencies and trying to hang on to the UK's AAA rating, I think that's a mistake. Yes, it would be nice to retain it. Yes, it is at risk of us losing it if there's not more fiscal restraint. But at the end of the day, I don't think it helps us if we kind of sacrifice growth just to keep something that no one really pays attention to and not many people believe in anymore.
So you don't think that Britain losing its top credit rating will necessarily be the nightmare scenario that's been anticipated?
No, I completely agree with Mark. If you look at Italy, Italy's 4 notches below the UK. Yes, we have an independent currency, there's an exchange rate risk, and the euro area has has probably better inflation, but they're paying about 4.1%, and we're at 3.55%. So even if you lost it, where's the nightmare? It's not a nightmare. The treatment's worse than the illness.
Yeah.